Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We want to talk about today behaviors of vulnerable narcissist. I originally titled it Vulnerable Narcissism, but we want to look at the behaviors of this. Now, I've been reading a lot of journal articles. You know, the vulnerable type of narcissistic personality disorder is relatively new. We know what grandiose looks like, and I've got a video on that. Okay, so that's presents itself with very boisterous and self-aggrandizing and just all this stuff that we can recognize. They're the greatest, and nobody else has stuff to offer like they do. Vulnerable is quiet, though. Vulnerable narcissism is quiet, and it's hard to detect. And the reason I want to point this out is for clients that you're working with that are looking to get married or they're talking about their partners, we need to understand what this looks like so that we can help them figure out if these are good matches or not. I do want to mention something in case I forget is that there is a thing, okay, you don't see it in the academic literature, but there's videos out there about narcissists kind of pairing up or being attracted to empaths. So this is another reason why counselors should be very aware of this. There's a lot of counselors who are empaths, who feel very deeply or very intuitive, who are hyper considerate of others, feel others' pain. And these folks tend to be attracted to those. Okay, so not only do we need to know this for counselors, we need to know this for, for our clients and counselors. Now, a couple of these things, I wanted to mention this because I've got another video where I was listing, and I'm getting this from the research, but these three right here, characteristics of vulnerable narcissism: quietly unstable emotions. Now, what I mean by that is that this would not look like borderline personality disorder, which is very hot and cold. One moment they love you to death, and the next moment you're the worst person in the world, and they're yelling and screaming at you and doing all kind of things. This would be more quiet. You would not know that the emotions are unstable. It's more boiling within. Okay, it's more internalized, the unstable emotions. They're insecure, they feel inferior, they're prone to shame. When they do act out in some way, they feel it deeply. But folks, these four things would look, we might see this in folks with depression. We might see it with folks with different types of anxiety. Now, please understand, depression and anxiety are very complex. And we always want to recognize that people and their issues are very complex. Let's not simplify. And I'll do some videos on that as well. There's all different kinds of anxiety and depression. But these are common things that we would see for folks. And this could present as just being depressed or feeling really terrible about themselves and not reaching out and so forth. This is where the narcissism comes into play. You've got all these characteristics, which you don't find in the grandiose narcissism as much. But here's what you're going to find that really relates to the narcissism is you're going to find that they're also entitled, defensive, and envious. And so what I want to show you is how this can look in terms of actual behaviors that you can see, because I'm not finding a lot in the literature, the academic literature, about what are the specific behaviors. And so if we are entitled, defensive, and envious, but we're of the vulnerable type, things for your clients to pay attention to: does the person snoop? Is this somebody that reads the other person's diary, regularly keeps account on the phone, phone records and bank accounts? So snoopers, and again, it's never one thing that's going to define somebody with vulnerable narcissism. These are just things we want to process with clients as they're considering, whether maybe they're in a relationship with somebody who's, experiences vulnerable narcissism. Interruptions. This is a thing. Okay, here's the deal. People with narcissistic personality disorder cannot handle being interrupted. And yet they will interrupt often and frequently. Now, here's what will happen also. Typically, if you're an empath, you don't interrupt at all. You don't speak up when you need to speak up, okay? But let's say, for instance, you did interrupt somebody who is with vulnerable narcissism, and they will call you on it, and they will immediately. You would apologize, okay? That's what you would do. You would apologize. If the other person who interrupts a lot and you call them on it, and be careful, although they need to be called on it. So you want to do that, it will be met with defensiveness and anger, and pretty extreme. Okay. So interruptions are another key factor when thinking about vulnerable narcissism. Thoughtless and inconsiderate. And this can show up in small ways. Okay. Now, they're going to remember birthdays, they're going to get Christmas gifts or whatever, gift that is. But this can be where maybe they're not careful on how they park. Maybe they park really close to somebody and you're like hypersensitive to make sure people have room. Maybe if they leave cabinet doors open, or they don't put on lids securely, or just little things like this. They just don't consider that other people are going to need to use these things, and that this could be problematic, where you might be very hypersensitive to that. Okay, so just kind of thoughtless and inconsiderate in small little ways. Okay, and if you point them out, be aware there's going to be defensiveness and anger. Now, we're all human, we all make mistakes. You will find, and this is a terrible term, but I'm going to use it, disproportionate revenge. We could also say disproportionate response to your foibles, to your mistakes. And this could literally be that, oh, you were flirty at a party, with somebody, because remember, the enviousness is there, and they wind up sleeping with somebody. I mean, you see what I'm talking about. That's a pretty broad example, where maybe you were a little flirty, but then they react in this disproportionate way to this. So that's just another thing to keep when we're looking at this checklist. Okay, I'm trying to be appropriate. Mind fudge. There will be a lot of small things happening, like if you point out that they went through the diary, or that they interrupt people in you, or that you point out the leaving cabinets open and lids and all that kind of stuff. They will get angry, but as soon as you get angry, they will become very calm and a little condescending. This, sometimes I've heard this called colloquially, the narcissistic supply. They want you to become angry. And when you become angry, they become, oh, just the sweetest person. And how could you possibly be angry at that? Oh my gosh, you're so overreacting. So that's another thing to consider, because it's a natural reaction to get angry. Okay. So a couple other things. Another thing I want you to consider, are you hyper considerate? I think I've already done this. If you're an empath, be aware of the folks that are attracted to you. If you're hyper considerate, if you feel others, be aware you're kind of a target. Okay, so just another factor. And I do want to talk about something. I am going to talk more about this. There are tests out there in the public domain that can give us a good indicator of folks that have narcissistic personality disorders. And there's profiles. So there's tests that, when I've taught test measurement and assessment, that I've given for a while, there's profiles for what this looks like. So there are ways to test for this for your folks who are getting into partnerships or considering, marrying somebody. Man, this would be very worthwhile to have some tests that could give some indication. Will they follow up on that? I'm kind of questioning whether they would make any decisions based on that. But I'll do some more videos with this. Hey, if this is helpful, let me know. Again, be sure to subscribe and let me know through your comments if these are helpful. And we will see you on the next video. Take good care, people.